Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Amtrak's Board of Directors meeting. I'm Amtrak's Chief of Police, Sam Dotson, and as we do at every meeting at Amtrak, we're going to start with our safety briefing today. So we're located at 20 F Street. There are police officers with us today to ensure our safety. We also know that there are no planned exercises or drills in the building, so if the alarms are to activate, please follow the commands from the voice-actuated system. Look around you, make sure there are no tripping hazards, make sure there are no backpacks. There's nothing in our impediment should we need to move around or evacuate from the room. In the world we live in today, it's very important that we talk about active shooter for our safety. Amtrak subscribes to the DHS philosophy to run, evacuate, remove yourself from the environment, hide, barricade yourself, and if you must, fight. But again, there are Amtrak police officers with us today to help us take care of our safety. Also, in the world we live in, it is very important that we think about cyber threats, both in our professional and personal lives. If you receive an email not expecting with an attachment or asking for a contribution of cash that you're not expecting, please don't click on that. And in the work environment, please notify our cyber team so they can deconflict that message. And in your personal life, please realize that there are individuals out there looking to do all of us harm. So as we begin today's meeting, any questions about our safety briefing before we get started? Great, then I will pass it to Amtrak's General Counsel, Bill Herman.
Thank you, Chief Dotson. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Amtrak Board of Directors to order. My name is William Herman, and I am the Amtrak General Counsel and Corporate Secretary. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, and this is a duly noticed meeting of the Amtrak Board of Directors. First, I will take the roll call of the directors present. We could begin. Tony Kosha, Chair. Here. Joel Zabad, Vice Chair. Here. Associate Administrator for Railroad Development and DOT Secretary Delegate to the Amtrak Board, Paul Nissenbaum. Here. Mayor Chris Coos. Here. David Capozzi. Here. Elaine Clegg. Here. Ron Vittori. And Lanhee Chen was unable to attend and sends his regret. Confirm that we have a quorum present for today's meeting. Mr. Chair, you may proceed with the scheduled agenda.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Welcome to all the members of the public who are attending today's meeting virtually. If you have comments, we do not take comments or questions during the meeting, but we do invite you to submit any comments to amtrak.com Board Directors webpage. We're very interested in getting your feedback. And in that vein, I will tell you that as we continue to plan these public sessions of our board meeting, we're making changes in order to accommodate issues that have been brought up and things that have happened, because we're super interested in making sure that these sessions are as helpful to all of our stakeholders as possible. So you will see changes as the different board meetings proceed to try to make this a better, more informative experience for everyone, and hopefully provide great insight into how Amtrak operations are proceeding. So today we have several presentations, beginning with opening remarks from our president, Roger Harris. He'll be followed by a financial report by our CFO, Costin Corneau, and then a report jointly done by Elliot Hamlish, our Chief Commercial Officer, and Gary Williams, our Executive Vice President for Service Delivery and Operations. That'll be followed by a report on capital delivery, and updating us on that will be Jim Short, who's the acting Senior Vice President for Capital Delivery. And then finally, a report on two significant things that have happened in the most recent period: our NextGen Acela launch and the initiation of the Mardi Gras service. And our president, Roger Harris, will come back to provide an update on that and share how that proceeded. So with that, let me begin with inviting up our president, Roger Harris.
Thank you, Tony, and good morning, everybody. As Tony said, I'm Roger Harris, president of Amtrak, and it's a great honor to be here at Amtrak in these exciting times. And I say that for three reasons, primarily. One is the record ridership that we're seeing, the record revenue, and the record amount of capital investment and infrastructure that is being built. I would like you to listen to evidence of this from my colleagues, Costin, Gary, Elliot, and Jim, who will be presenting on this immediately afterwards. The three reasons I mentioned: ridership growth, which is based on strong demand. I attribute this to a resurgence in interest in passenger rail in the US, more capacity from our operations team, and a great job by the commercial team in terms of marketing and pricing. Ridership leads to revenue, which combined with cost discipline drives improved financial performance, as you see in adjusted operating income. And that leads to capital spend made possible by better financial performance and good stewardship of public funds. We're seeing 4 times the level of pre-IIJA spending and accomplishment on infrastructure projects. I'll be back in a minute to give you a brief update on events last month on the Mardi Gras service and NextGen Acela. Costin?
Thank you, Roger, and good afternoon to everyone. Today, we will review our consolidated performance for the July year-to-date period. We're still working on closing the books on the month of August, and we'll report full year results on the next quarterly update. Early signs are pointing towards a continuation of positive results. Through July, we delivered an adjusted operating loss of $525.3 million, with a negative operating margin at 16%. These results represent a 17.3% improvement over fiscal year 2024 and a 5.3% improvement over our annual plan, and were driven by strong revenue performance and disciplined discretionary cost controls. I want to thank the entire Amtrak team for delivering on excellent results here to date. I'm especially proud of our projected all-time high record revenue and ridership, our cost controls, as Roger mentioned, which are resulting in expenses coming in almost exactly on plan, adjusted for one-time items, and our ability to predict our business performance with accuracy. We're also on track to deliver the highest annual capital delivery spend and the highest amount of construction project in Amtrak's history. From an operational revenue standpoint, we're able to increase capacity across the network by 5.6%, which led to 1.6 million higher riders compared to the same period in the fiscal year 2024. This higher volume, coupled with improved ticket yield of 4.1%, resulted in an 11.1% revenue growth across all of our service lines. Our operational metrics are outperforming prior year and remain robust. RASM, or revenue per available seat mile, has improved 4%, while CASM, or cost per available seat miles, has improved 0.5%. Moving to our capital spend, we continue to prioritize our investments and delivered on large-scale projects while improving the state of good repair of our rail assets. Through July, we have spent $4.5 billion, 46.4% higher than fiscal year 2024, and 13.7% lower than our plan. Relative to fiscal year 2024, our spend on large-scale construction projects of bridges, tunnels, tracks, facilities, major station improvements, as well as refleeting and ADA compliance efforts, have advanced significantly. We will continue to prioritize our capital spend to align to our strategic goals. Within our capital portfolio spend of $4.5 billion, our primary investment is within bridges and tunnels, including BMP Tunnel, East River Tunnel, Connecticut River Bridge, and Hudson River Tunnel, where we've spent approximately $1.3 billion through July. We've also invested $1.1 billion in maintaining our track, catenary, signals, and structures to ensure safe train operations. Finally, we continue to invest in the fleet and facilities expansion, station improvement, bringing our station and facilities into ADA compliance, and enhancing our digital technology, specifically in the customer-facing areas. Moving on from our consolidated business performance, I will now give an overview of our business segments, passenger operations, and infrastructure. Within our passenger business, our performance remains solid, and our adjusted operating loss of $307.9 million is 34.6% better than fiscal year 2024, driven by the improvements in capacity and ridership that we discussed previously, which resulted in a revenue growth of 9.7%. The core structural costs within our passenger business continue to perform well and are only increasing 1.8% compared to fiscal year 2024. Compared to plan, the adjusted operating loss is 18.8% better. Shifting to the right side of the graph, infrastructure, we had an adjusted operating loss of $217.4 million, which is 32% worse compared to 2024. Our strong revenue performance within the segment, which was higher by 10.3%, was more than offset by an increase several non-operational one-time expenses, including write-offs. Now I'd like to highlight our service line results, starting with our Northeast Corridor operations. Our NEC service line continues to perform strongly and is $96.4 million, or 48% better than fiscal year 2024. Revenue within the NEC has grown 9.1% as ridership and yield surpassed prior year, helping to offset lower capacity within our Acela service. We continue to see strong year-over-year growth in the NEC after the pandemic resulted in a downturn in fiscal year 2021 and 2022. We are excited about the deployment of the new Acela trains and look forward to its contribution to more frequencies and seats, which will improve Amtrak's bottom line in the future. NEC service line is operationally profitable and continues to provide the majority of the consolidated bottom line improvement year over year. Now, I'd like to move over to the state-supported business within our national network, where the adjusted operating loss through July of $210.3 million has improved 5.4% compared to prior year. An increase of capacity of 1.4% are driving improvements in ridership and revenue results, which are $36.4 million better than fiscal year 2024. On the expense side, strict cost controls have resulted in keeping overall expenses in line with inflation of 2.6%. Finally, our long-distance service line within our national network has an operating loss of $521 million, which is favorable to prior year by just under 3%. A 7.4% increase in capacity is driving ridership, and despite flat ticket yield, revenue grew 9.3%. On the expense side, costs are growing in line with inflation as we continue to focus on cost management across all Amtrak. The majority of Amtrak's consolidated operating loss is driven by the long-distance service, one of Amtrak's core missions supported by Congress and funded annually through appropriations. And with that, I'd like to open the floor for questions.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Costin. These are exciting numbers. It's great to see the growth in ridership and the operational efficiencies that have allowed us to also save money there. I wonder if you could tell us, although we had an increase in capacity, we're also at a place where we just don't have any more fleet. And even in places where we'd like to make more seats available, we just can't at the moment. Do we have any idea what the opportunity cost of that is at this point?
Yeah, good. Thank you for the question, Elaine. We've talked a little bit about this in the last few months around some of the capacity constraints that we're having, especially because of the old fleet, end of life fleet, trying to maintain those assets into running conditions. It is difficult right now to give an exact number for what we think the opportunity is, and it is opportunistically related to where we're actually making money or we have a positive contribution margin. That means either on the Northeast Corridor or where we know that every departure we have is going to generate bottom line impact, or on the state supported or on some of the long distance routes where by generating an incremental frequency would still improve the bottom line because it more than covers for that variable cost. We are continuing to work through opportunities through those routes, though equipment is the primary issue right now.
So if I could follow up on that, one of the highlights in your presentation was that on a long distance service, that's, you know, the place where we lose the most money. But within that service, the Silver Star and the Capital Limited are performing pretty well. Are there things we can learn from why that performance is higher that we could extend to other pieces of the long distance network?
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely routes within the long distance network that perform better than others. And as I said earlier, there's opportunity for frequencies that could generate more than their variable cost, thus improving the bottom line. It's a mixture of different things, the market environment, the revenue generation, the ridership for those routes and frequencies, the costs associated to them, and we're looking on our route analysis every single month of those results and opportunities.
Costin, I want to switch to the financial side for a second. First, I think in this case, I probably speak for all the board members to say I'm delighted with the team's performance, that we've had, accommodated record ridership. Revenue per average seat mile is up. Cost per average seat mile is down. These are all the things that you'd want to see trending in those directions, and they're all trending in the right direction. But the challenge we have is that we have a goal to be operationally break even by FY28, and we're still over $600 million per year in the red. Now you've briefed us on the plan to get from here to there, but you've already implemented zero-based budgeting. We've done a reduction in a management headcount. What levers do you think we have left to pull, or what will be the major factors that are going to allow us to get from where we are now to where we need to be in FY28?
Thanks, Joel, for the question. As we said earlier this year, we have a plan to get to train operations profitability by 2028 and eventually consolidated Amtrak profitability sometime towards the end of the decade. As you said, it is a very aggressive plan that we're trying to execute. The good part is that we're on track through 2025, and we're putting a plan in 2026 that is based on a set of assumptions that we think we can execute well on. I do want to address your question in two parts. The first part is, what are the opportunities? And the second part, what are the risks? On the first part of the question, the opportunities, I would say that our continued deployment of the new Acela train sets with increased frequencies and increased seats through 2027 and maturing the product in 2028 will continue to produce bottom line improvement on the Northeast Corridor, as well as all the new tools that we're implementing from both cost controls and pricing revenue management side. We are on the cost side also looking at efficiencies within our labor to continue to optimize bottom line cost. And we believe there is enough to get us there by the 2028 for train operations and 2030 for consolidated numbers. Now, against those set of assumptions were some risks like a good deployment of Acela no significant infancy issues, maturing the product well, having reliability continue to stay up on our old end-of-life equipment, a successful replacement of that equipment, no major capital issues, and favorable market conditions. So I do think that we have a good, strong plan to get there. Thank you. And with that, I'll just turn over to our Chief Commercial Officer, Elliot Hemblish, for a commercial update. Elliot?
Excellent. Thank you. I am joined this afternoon by Gary Williams as well, who will be up shortly, our Chief Operating Officer, to share some remarks as well. Let's go ahead and jump into our commercial results. So starting with ridership, as Roger mentioned, we are seeing record ridership almost every single month as we've progressed throughout fiscal year 25. And we continue to break historical trends with all service lines exceeding FY24 and annual operating plan levels, driven by, again, as Roger mentioned, strong demand and increased capacity. Ridership growth has been strong indeed across all inventory types, with the exception of Acela business class, which has been constrained by supply availability. Our flex fare product is the highest growing fare product this fiscal year, with customers willing to pay a premium for flexibility. Overall, we're seeing fantastic growth across the board, constrained only by supply challenges. Let's take a look at specifics by service line. So as mentioned earlier, we're exceeding year-to-date ridership levels from fiscal year 24 and relative to plan across each of our 3 service lines. On the Northeast Corridor, operational efficiencies, including quick turns on our Northeast regional trains, in parallel with creative commercial tactics, have helped to offset Acela capacity constraints, thus boosting ridership. Fiscal year to date, July, NER or Northeast regional ridership rose 2.1% versus plan, while Acela ridership declined 8.4%, primarily, once again, driven by capacity constraints. Year over year, NER ridership increased by 12%, with Acela down roughly 2%. Core demand has been incredibly strong across our state-supported service line, powered by the Empire, Pacific Surfliner, Cascades, and Borealis services. The delayed East River Tunnel outage supported ridership gains in New York relative to plan, but the Horizon Fleet outage in late March interrupted growth. Moving on to our long-distance service line, deployment of additional coach and sleeper capacity across the long-distance network boosted ridership, with notable examples including the Silver Meteor, Cardinal, California Zephyr, Southwest Chief, Texas Eagle, Sunset Limited, and Coast Starlight routes. Shifting gears to talk about Customer Satisfaction Index, or CSI. July year-to-date results are trailing plan by 0.4 points, with lagging on-time performance as the primary driver. However, in positive news, we have seen an outstanding rebound in August, with year-to-date August results trailing our plan by less than a point. And my colleague Gary will speak to some of the why behind that in just a couple of minutes. As has been the case historically, year-to-date CSI results are highly correlated with on-time performance. Severe weather disruptions, heat orders, and train interference were among the primary contributors, which primarily impacted the Northeast Corridor, along with our Empire, Silver Meteor, and Floridian routes. In close partnership with Gary's team and the broader operations department and a network of cross-functional partners across the business, we remain steadfastly focused on delivering gains in not only on-time performance, but also the other components that enhance the customer experience on board our trains. We've seen solid gains in status communications, Wi-Fi, and food and beverage scores year to date, which are up 5 points, 6 points, and 2 points, respectively. Taking a deeper dive to our CSI results by service line. The majority of our year-to-date underperformance versus both last year and versus goal is driven by our Acela service, which is down 3.1 points year over year and 2.7 points versus plan. Again, OTP or on-time performance challenges persisted in July due to a number of the factors that I shared earlier: weather disruptions, heat orders, and engine and equipment issues. Though improved satisfaction with our communication of these disruptions did mitigate some of the negative impact that we saw to overall CSI. Our state-supported service line continues to perform above plan and year over year with Cascades, San Joaquin, Pacific Surfliner, and Capital Corridor services contributing most positively. Continued high on-time performance for the California routes, as well as improved satisfaction with Wi-Fi and food and beverage in July, helped to maintain overperformance. Lastly, long distance also remains favorable to plan and year over year, with our Crescent, Coast Starlight, and California Zephyr routes contributing the most positively to that overperformance fiscal year to date. In July, crowded trains and on-time performance challenges for the Floridian and Silver Meteor routes resulted in monthly long-distance CSI below plan and year over year, but improved on-time performance and satisfaction with communication on the Crescent and Coast Starlight routes helped to mitigate some of these challenges. Lastly, I'll touch briefly on historical CSI trends. And you can see here, CSI scores have unfortunately steadily declined year over year since the year immediately following the onset of COVID, which again is driven primarily by challenges associated with a legacy fleet, equipment reliability issues, and an uptick in track work, all of which in concert have introduced significant headwinds to our on-time performance. As shared earlier, we're working cross-functionally to address a number of these areas of opportunity related both to OTP and the other items that contribute to our customer experience, such as Wi-Fi, status communications, food and beverage, train cleanliness, and others. I will now hand it over to Gary, but I will remain up here to the extent you've got questions on either what I've shared and or what Gary will share. We're happy to address them both together. Gary, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Elliot. Good afternoon and good morning. Again, I'm Gary Williams. I have responsibility for service delivery and operations for Amtrak. While the year-to-date customer on-time performance is at 72.9% versus a goal of 76%, the month of July was 68%, which was flat with June, but a point better than July of last year. In fact, all service lines were flat in July compared to June and in line with our historical seasonal patterns. July's performance was a result of heat taking its toll on infrastructure, including heat orders and our aging equipment, especially our legacy Acelas. Additionally, increased production work as well as other capital projects increased the challenge to maintain schedules, including the associated tight turns that were intended to maximize service. While the year-to-date performance for the Northeast Corridor is 4 points lower than last year and 6 points under goal, the month of July was at 69%, and as I referred to earlier, flat with June, but better than 2 points better than July of last year. Again, July's performance on the Northeast Corridor was driven by heat orders, track maintenance and production, and an aging legacy Acela fleet combined with an aggressive schedule to increase capacity. However, it is noteworthy that our seasonal performance, July, August, and into September on the NEC is better than the previous 2 years. As you can see from the chart, our state-supported service year-to-date is just under plan and under previous year's performance. July's monthly customer on-time performance was at 74%, which was flat with June and flat with last year's June. Significant drivers of this performance are delays to our New York State Empire service due to track work and our East River Tunnel outage, heat orders on CN and CSX, and an increase in commuter train interference on Metro North. Our long-distance service is 6 points unfavorable year over year and 4 points unfavorable to plan. The month of July was at 41%, which was flat to June and last year's July, while the Southwest Chief, California Zephyr, and the Floridian drove the poor performance. The Auto Train, Coast Starlight, Crescent, and Sunset Limited made goal in July. Freight train interference, heat orders, speed restrictions, and passenger train interference accounted for most of the delays. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I apologize, I could not help myself. The second half of the year has seen each month, with the exception of May, match or beat FY24's numbers, with a significant improvement in August, continuing into September. Schedule adjustments, continuous improvement initiatives, and a continued focus on reliability by our mechanical and infrastructure teams are driving improvement. Acela Amtrak caused delay, which is delay per 10,000 train miles, was down almost 30% in August versus July. Acela initial terminal performance, are we leaving on time, improved overall by 3.4 points to 93.4% in August versus July. Boston Acela initial terminal performance is at 94.6% in August, its best level all year. Washington Acela initial terminal performance is at 95.7% in August, also its best level all year. Acela customer on-time performance improved by 11 points to 80% in August versus July. Northeast Regional Amtrak caused delay is down by 20% in August versus July, and the Northeast Regional initial terminal performance improved by 6.1 points to 92.2%. In August versus July, its best level all year. Northeast Regional customer on-time performance, including the Virginia trains, improved by 10 points to 79% in August, its best level all year. The Northeast Regional on-spine customer on-time performance, and Northeast Regionals on-spine are the ones that stay on the corridor, between Washington and Boston, improved by 6 points to 81% in August versus July. Let's talk just a minute about the next generation Acela that recently launched. While we are seeing really strong performance of critical power and control systems, we are experiencing some infancy reliability issues with external doors, toilet sensors, ceiling panels, etc. We are working together with Alstom to address all of these issues, and we appreciate our customers' patience as we work through these. All right, host railroad responsible delays. State-supported service line was favorable over year by almost 7 points and favorable to plan by over 5 points. 10 out of 16 services had reduced delays compared to last year, led by Hiawatha, Vermonter, Piedmont, and Cascade services. 7 services had increased delays, led by Missouri River Runner, Heartland Flyer, and Downeaster. The long-distance service line was favorable year over year by 1 point, but unfavorable to plan by 3. 6 services had reduced delays compared to last year, led by Crescent, California Zephyr, Lakeshore, and Silver Meteor. 7 services had increased delays, led by Cardinal, City of New Orleans, and Texas Eagle. The Capital and Silver Star were replaced by the Floridian, so while we cannot make an exact comparison, the Floridian delays in this year are higher than the Capital and Silver Star delays last year. Some call-outs regarding our partners. Norfolk Southern host responsible delays for the Crescent have decreased 34%, with freight train interference decreasing 53% year over year. Across the entire NS network, host responsible delays have decreased 26%, with freight train interference decreasing 42%. CSX host responsible delays have decreased 11% in July, and we have some recent improvement in the auto train performance. Finally, on the customer consist fulfillment. Customer consist fulfillment measures the percent of trains that operated with the planned customer-facing consist. Basically, this takes the locomotives out of it. It tells us how well we are doing on planning around the fleet constraints that we have and subsequently executing to the plan. Customer consist fulfillment is in line with historical trends, with the primary issues being Midwest and West Coast state-supported fleet size and availability. The highest fulfillment is in the Northeast corridor, including in the Northeast, including the Northeast corridor, where fulfillment remains high and basically unchanged. Midwest has challenges driven by regular substitution of venture equipment. The past 2 months have been especially difficult as several venture cars have had to be removed from service for 4-year overhauls. This has not only pulled down consist fulfillment, but even resulted in full train cancellations. As the summer long-distance peak winds down in September, we will be temporarily deploying national network equipment on Midwest trains to supplement the venture fleet. Because the Midwest states did not buy enough equipment to adequately fill all of their services, this will continue to be a challenge. Most long-distance variance is driven by fleet types with fewer than 30 units, such as dining cars, resulting in more opportunity for day-to-day variation from planned consists. And that is everything, so I think we'll take questions now between the two of us. Yeah, David.
So I had 2 questions, I think, for Elliot. One good news, one bad news question, or maybe not so bad news.
We accept questions of all types.
So, okay. So first, the good news question. It was great to see historic ridership in fiscal year 2025. How sustainable is that for going forward next year and beyond that?
Sure. So next year's ridership doesn't hinge entirely on, but it is largely predicated on the successful rollout of NextGen Acela trains. So to the extent that we stay on time and on schedule as it relates to that rollout, we feel confident in our ridership estimates next year. The other other component that's quite heartening is that much of the growth that we've seen specifically on the NEC is coming midweek, which suggests that we're seeing business travel come back to a greater extent. And we feel that that will contribute positively to our ridership trends as well as we get into FY26. So both of those, I think, are good contributors that we're anticipating to persist. There are other contributing factors too, but by and large, we feel confident heading into next year.
And then for the not so good news question. So regarding CSI, looking over the last 6 years, the numbers are, although not significant, they're the lowest in 6 years. What are the biggest lessons that you've taken over that time, and how can we improve that? And then related to that, there's a portion of the CSI that asks questions about accessibility, and are those included in the overall CSI number?
Sure. So a statistic to start, about 89% of our CSI is correlated with on-time performance, right? So the single biggest contributor to the drop that you've seen over the past 5 years is a drop in on-time performance. There's a lot that Gary's team, in concert with our team and others cross-functionally, are doing to sort of essentially do everything we can to improve OTP, and Gary can touch on that as well. There are also other components, a few of which I touched on in my prepared remarks, around train cleanliness, communications, Wi-Fi, food and beverage, that we're also very squarely focused on too. So part of it is, one, identifying what the biggest contributors are and tackling those to the greatest extent we can. And also recognizing that when things do go wrong, there's also more different, better that we can be doing there to address customer needs when, again, things are not performing to the extent that we'd like to see them. So we're very broadly and cross-functionally focused on addressing all of those between our two teams. I'll give you a second. I'll touch on the accessibility piece too, but I don't know if anything you want to add on the OTP front.
Just that in addition to on-time train performance, if there's a service disruption, how we handle the customer care is also key and one that we are very focused on.
On the accessibility front, maybe a two-part question. Yes, it's incorporated into our CSI survey now, so we're getting perspective from anybody who'd like to answer the question on how it's going and where we've got opportunities for improvement or where it's going particularly well. Early feedback that we're hearing, at least over the past couple of months, suggests that boarding and luggage assistance are really the two primary contributing factors to some of the drop that we've seen over the past couple of months. Really two variables that we're finding are the underlying cause there. One is low-level platforms, and the second is station staffing. Right? And so those are sort of the couple of areas that as we dig into the results, we're identifying opportunities to improve and look forward to partnering with you and the community more broadly to see how much more different, better we can do to address those needs. Thank you.
Elliot Ramtori, going into fiscal year 26, how would you like to characterize unsold seat capacity as is related to the 3 service lines?
Yeah, we are very squarely focused on doing everything we can to sell as much capacity as possible. Our revenue management team, Roger touched briefly on all of the good work that they've been doing, not only to drive overall revenue, but also to address some of those, call it off-peak periods where we've got unsold capacity that we're looking to sell. Some of that is addressed via promotions and sales, right? That attempts to target and personalize offers to those who might be willing to travel during off-peak periods. And what we found is there's a good mix between really the pretty incredible customer willingness to pay during peak periods, right? We're seeing really all-time highs, specifically on the Northeast corridor during our peak periods through between Washington and Boston. And then again, trying to get creative through promotional tactics and various marketing initiatives to drive demand where we're seeing less of that to fill some of that unsold capacity.
Is there any particular service line that has the most unsold seat capacity?
Well, long distance has a lot more unsold seat capacity than the NEC, for example, across a number of different routes. We take, it's sort of less focused on one service line versus another and more focused very specifically on OD pairs where there's opportunity. I don't have the numbers in front of me for specific OD pairs that we're targeting, but it's days of week, it's times of day, and it's specific OD pairs at a very granular level that the team is focused on with a very sophisticated, set of tools to help drive demand where we think there's greatest opportunity. Yes, Mayor Cruz.
Leveraging off that question, our long distance fleets not having the unused capacity, having that unused capacity, is something that we can plan in marketing those trains as much local commuters and short-term trips, as opposed to calling it the long distance fleet that goes from Chicago to San Antonio, things like that. And because we know that there's a lot of use there, but just promoting that use and saying, here's another opportunity.
Yeah, it's an interesting, maybe I'll call it a conundrum, right? We've got limited marketing dollars, right? And so the question is, how do we deploy those marketing dollars to the greatest extent and sort of most useful extent possible? Maximizing our return on ad spend. What you're suggesting is something that we spend a lot of time and effort talking about, Rich, which is how do we think about deployment of dollars or allocation of dollars to talk about Amtrak overall, and sort of bucket number one. Some of that's awareness driving, and some of that is what we call lower funnel or conversion driving, right? Trying to encourage somebody to actually click on an ad to book immediately, right? So that's sort of the picture of the full funnel. We've got Amtrak overall, we've got service line specifics, and then we've got either specific geographies or specific OD pairs. As we get more and more granular, it's harder to dedicate more dollars because the return gets less and less simply because the number of riders becomes less and less, right? So we're thinking a lot and getting more sophisticated using something we call a media mix model, which identifies the either success or lack thereof that's associated with each of the dollars that we're deploying across that entire funnel. And then also looking at, call it global Amtrak messaging versus more specific geography-specific messaging as well. So long story short, we're trying to optimize across that network in a somewhat constrained environment from a marketing budget perspective. But very much appreciate the question, and we do spend a lot of time thinking about, again, how to optimize given the resources that we have. Thank you. I'm getting the no more questions note, so we will pause there and hand it over to Jim Short, who will give a capital delivery update.
Good afternoon, good morning. So the bad news is we're behind schedule a little bit in this meeting. The good news is the vast majority of the 220 projects in the capital delivery program are ahead of schedule. I'm happy to report. So I am Jim Short. I'm the acting senior vice president for capital delivery. Laura Mason, the executive vice president for this department, will be returning from leave in about a week and a half. So the entire department's really looking forward to her return. So I want to accelerate this to the extent that I can. I want to talk about our fiscal year 26 plan. It's a really exciting time to be in capital delivery. We have so many projects in full-blown construction, and you'll see by the pictures that I'm going to be sharing with you, the level of construction activity out there is unprecedented, as Roger said in his opening remarks. So I'm going to walk through a number of these projects. I'll go rather quickly. Our overall fiscal year 26 capital plan is $5.2 billion. That compares with our current forecast for fiscal year 24 of about $4.1 billion. So we're going to spend another $1 billion plus in 26 versus 25, and you'll be able to see the results of that spend. First, there is remaining spend on the NextGen Acela fleet that's been talked about a lot here today as we continue to take delivery of the remaining train sets. We've taken delivery of 5 so far. That's what made the revenue launch here just a couple of weeks ago, and we have a whole fleet behind them to still 2 go. The Aero program is another fleet replacement program. That program is going very, very well. Equipment production is proceeding according to plan. We took the first train set, the diesel train set, to our transportation center in Pueblo, Colorado for testing here in the last several weeks. That train will be heading to the Northeast Corridor very soon, and that will ultimately enter revenue service on the Cascades line. Will be the first launch of revenue service for Aero. We're going to spend about $440 million in fiscal year 26 on this program. Facilities, you can't launch new fleet without facilities to maintain and service that fleet. We have a plan for these what are called level 1 facilities to deliver that capability into the Amtrak network. We're going to spend almost $900 million in fiscal year 26. These 5 projects, many of these are already in construction. You can see the Seattle Yard picture there at the top, the Southampton Yard in Boston on the bottom. These projects are going extremely well in the early days. We deployed these with the design build delivery model, which is innovative for Amtrak, but these projects are going very well. Switching to our major stations program, major stations are the iconic stations that fall under capital delivery. We're going to spend over $340 million in fiscal year 26. Most of that is the continued work on our 30th Street station in Philadelphia. We're doing a complete refurbishment of the station for the customer experience on the station level, as well as renovation of the corporate office towers in the North and South Tower. That project is going well. Baltimore Station has work ongoing, and as well as Chicago. Our capital renewal program, we're going to spend about $900 million in fiscal year 26. This gets to some of what Gary was talking about adding resiliency to our existing assets in terms of our catenary systems, our rail systems, to ensure reliable service for our passengers and predictable on-time performance. We're organized here by portfolio, and we have a number of projects and our annual maintenance programs under this area. Tunnels and track is another big area, the East River Tunnel project. Really excited to continue to report that project is on schedule. We took Line 2 out of service a few months ago. That will reopen in July of 2026. Following a brief pause, we will take Line 1 out of service and do the exact same rehabilitation on Line 1. Hudson Tunnel Program is a very large program, $16 billion. We are a funding partner and an execution party to that contract, and that job is going extremely well at the moment. Under the major bridges areas, at $600 and some million in FY26, starting at the north end with Connecticut River Bridge. That project is going extremely well. You can see the pictures of the active construction in the river underway. Portal North Bridge is a New Jersey Transit-led project, but we are an active partner in that job. And that job is scheduled to do the major cutover in the spring of 2026. Additional major bridges, Sawtooth is another bridge on the Northeast Corridor. It's got a lot of work to do. We plan to issue notice to proceed for the early works in 26. The Susquehanna River Bridge, we expect to issue the issue for construction plans and continue to execute some real estate acquisitions. The Dock River Bridge, we did a value engineering exercise on that project and cut over $100 million out of that job. And so we're going to be issuing the notice to proceed for construction and procurement of equipment. Finally, on the BNP program, you can see the construction that's going on here. The picture in the lower right is called a siphon. It's about 60 feet deep, and there's one on either side of the existing track, and is to relocate really large utilities, including a 126-inch storm drain that needs to be relocated to support this tunnel program. In summary, this is a fantastic year for capital delivery. A lot of stuff is underway. Gives us a huge amount of confidence to meet our spend plan in FY26. We had some challenges in 25 that were talked about earlier, but we're very, very confident on our FY26 plan. So what I'd like to do is to pass it over to Roger, and I'll just skip the questions on this section if you don't mind. If we have time at the end, I'm happy to come back and answer those. Roger?
Great. Thank you, Jim. And I hope all of you were as impressed as I am about the incredible amount of infrastructure and other capital work that's going on currently in the capital delivery group. So I wanted to give everybody a taste of all the excitement that we had going on in the last month. There were two really memorable events. And the first one is the Mardi Gras service. So after 20 years after Hurricane Katrina came in and basically interrupted the service that previously operated along the Gulf Coast, and after 10 years worth of efforts to restore the service, finally last month we kicked off the new Mardi Gras service from New Orleans to Mobile, and hopefully we have a video of that here. Oh.
Amtrak's new Mardi Gras train route will soon be in service. The route, which travels from New Orleans to Mobile, will welcome its first passengers on board on Monday.
Is just a really special reconnection for all the people of the Gulf Coast.
They came from all over.
I came down here from Tallahassee, me and 3 friends.
I've come all the way down from Boston to ride this train.
This is an incredible opportunity for people all along the Gulf Coast.
Welcome to Amtrak 2.0. Today is the start of a new Amtrak.
They're beautiful. They're going to be faster, but most importantly, a better experience for the traveling public.
This is beautiful. It's brand new. It's going to be a way different traveling experience.
America's newest, fastest train is now rolling up the East Coast. Did you make a point of booking it because it was the first one?
Yes, oh yeah.
I love the Acela. That's the nicest way to go to New York.
Big changes here on the rails this morning. Amtrak's brand new high-speed Acela trains are officially launching today.
Today is the day that starts a new Amtrak that delivers on the promise of safe, reliable, and efficient travel.
These trains are beautiful. They are fast, they are state-of-the-art, and they are American-made. I'd like to invite you to experience NextGen Acela, the next generation of premium travel in America. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a taste of what it was like, but I will tell you that it does not do justice to the amount of excitement. It really was incredible. On the Mardi Gras launch, we had thousands of people along the route. At every station we stopped at, there was an incredible level of civic pride and involvement, and it was really heartwarming. The event itself generated over 880 news stories and 1.27 billion impressions, and that really is incredible exposure that you can't get. You can't buy that kind of exposure. It really comes from this kind of organic excitement with a service launch. So far, more than 15,000 people have ridden the new Mardi Gras service in less than a month. And going on to Acela, this was another huge celebration. Hot on the heels, just 10 days after the Mardi Gras service launch, we had the celebration, which kicked off here in Washington Union Station. It was exciting because in the same way that the Acela transformed Northeast Corridor 25 years ago when it was launched, so we expect the new Acela to take up the level of service in this market. Now, remember that in those 25 years, we've carried over almost 70 million customers on Acela. And in fact, our market share in the New York-Washington market and the New York-Boston market roughly doubled in that period of time. It was very exciting. We had a number of dignitaries, including Secretary of Transportation Duffy, Deputy Secretary Bradbury, our chairman, several board members, and the CEO of Alstom, who is the builder of the train at the event. We departed from Washington, went up to New York, to Boston, and then the next day, we rode the first revenue service back. The customer feedback was absolutely, I would say, impressive. People really liked the bright, open, spacious, modern interiors, and I think that the customer reaction was overwhelmingly positive. The news story was multiples of what we saw on the Mardi Gras service. As happy as we were with Mardi Gras, we had 3,300 stories about NextGen Acela, 5 billion impressions. That really is a remarkable amount of media exposure for us. And more than 100 reporters attending the celebration events. So far, we've carried 125,000 people on the NextGen Acela since they launched just at the very end of August. Now if we look ahead and see what else is happening. So we've launched the new Acela with 5 new trains. We will get to 24 of these new trains by the end of the coming fiscal year, 14 by the end of this calendar year. So the ramp up is pretty fast. We will be retiring our legacy Acelas, the older original first generation Acelas, by this time next year. And we'll have the full fleet introduced by 2027. We heard a little bit about the Aero trains. These are very exciting. These are the new Cascade service trains and also on the Northeast Corridor. First, will be introduced into service less than a year from now, and we'll be seeing them on Northeast Corridor in early 2027. Then we also have more long-distance locomotives being delivered in 2026. So we have 50 more coming. And then we will be completing the interior refurbishment of our Superliner long-distance trains. And with that, I don't know if we have time for questions or if Tony, I can hand it over to you.
Mr. Chairman, while you're walking up there, could I say, I was able to go on the Mardi Gras inaugural run, and I've not seen that kind of community excitement around infrastructure forever. It was amazing, and I hope that all of us as a board can get down there at some point. I've heard since that the ridership has just been knocking it out of the park, that they had full trains all weekend, last weekend, for instance.
Yeah, thanks for that, Elaine. And I think we've all gotten an enormous amount of positive feedback on both the initiation of the Mardi Gras service and also the new Acelas. These are, there are a ton of things happening at Amtrak. There's an enormous level of investment. There's a lot of focus on trying to tighten the way we operate. There's just simply a lot going on to try to make this a better railroad and a better run company. And it is sort of incumbent on us as directors to manage this process. With a very heavy workload also comes challenges and some risks that come with those opportunities. And I know everyone is focused on it. Roger, thank you, and to the team. There were a series of very informative reports. Before I wrap up to close, though, let me open up for any other final questions from any of the board members or comments that anyone wants to make.
I'll try to make this quick. Thank you, Tony. Hey, Roger, this one's for you. So in Costin's presentation, he talked about the importance of a smooth deployment of Acela to meet our financial bottom line. We've got 5 of the NextGen Acelas in service. You mentioned 24 within the next 12 months. Given how important Acela is kind of the backbone for the system, and given that every engineer I've talked to talks about any new system that gets deployed has glitches that have to be worked through, what glitches have we found so far? And what does that mean in terms of future deployment?
Yeah, thank you, Joel. So I would say this, we put the train through their paces in validation runs prior to entering service, hundreds of thousands of miles. They're running very well mechanically. I think Gary alluded to that. The things that we are seeing are things like door systems that need to be calibrated, sensors that need to be checked, and we're working very closely with the car builder, Alstom, and their suppliers to make sure those challenges get resolved, especially before we take delivery of additional units. So the trains are running well. We need to make sure that those customer-facing elements are fully resolved.
So to put words in your mouth, none of the glitches are such that we have to take anything out of service to fix right now.
That's true.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Any other questions, comments?
Roger, going into FY26, as I addressed it with Elliot, there's a lot of change that has passed us. There's more change before us. How would you characterize as far as strengthening the development and strengthening the retention of the organization? Because when you go through change, you want a good team.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. I think we have a great team, and you can see that from, I think, the results that we've delivered. What we're really focusing on at this point to help people is focusing on the basics and really getting a small number of goals to focus on so that we don't get distracted by, a lot of chatter going on in the environment. I think that's the most important way that we can help people focus on their jobs and also support them with the things they need in terms of tools and investment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today. This concludes the public meeting. Our next Board of Directors meeting will be held on December 3rd and 4th, 2025 in New Orleans, Louisiana, where we'll obviously, continue to sort of focus on our expanded service there. That's also our annual board meeting where the public is invited to attend in person. If you need additional information on that, it's available and posted at amtrak.com. We'll now conclude the public session of our meeting. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.